Hello and welcome back to 33 Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Michael Aveney, and today's guest is Phoebe. Phoebe is the founder of Clarendon Consulting. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me, Michael. Yes, I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today. But I want to read something that kind of came from our conversation about our pre-call, and then we'll drop into the podcast. So, Phoebe, what stood out to me immediately about you is this. You didn't leave corporate life because you were burned out. You left because you wanted to be useful where it actually mattered. You were working with nonprofits and rural communities, or you're working now with nonprofits and rural communities that the old system seems to be quietly or not so quietly now letting go of. And instead of fighting for scraps, you started asking a deeper question. What if abundance doesn't come from all of the systems? What if it comes from relationships? So before we dive into nonprofits and funding and all of that that's happening right now, I just want to start with what transformation are you in the middle of right now?
I think I'm in the middle of having got comfortable with my kind of role behind the scenes. It's now stepping out of that. I've been asked to co-host a couple of events coming up and trying to work my way through this incredible community impact and out onto the stage and taking that permission and kind of not being an imposter, I think is one of the key things that I'm trying to sort of wrap my head around.
You're going to go through all of those spaces. I'll just tell you right now, but it's okay because you have a very relatable, authentic way of how you present yourself. So that's the key. If I could offer you anything, because I understand about like stepping out in front and what that entails. But when we were talking before on our pre-call when we first met, and you brought up this topic, it's something that I hear so much, and people are just kind of they don't know what to do because the funding sources from the old systems, they're not there anymore. And I've been having conversations with people too, and I'm like, yeah, we just got to realize that it's us that's the value. We just got to figure out how to do that. And then we met, and I'm like, oh my God, you're doing it. So yes, that is what we're chit-chatting about today. But why rural though? Like why the rural?
Communities have been historically underestimated. I grew up in London in the UK, and it was very much about the kind of urban capitalist centre where deals were done fast and contracts were executed quickly, and it was just about getting things done as speedily as possible. And rural felt to me kind of, the impression was sort of that it was slower and so things weren't able to be done. And what I realize now from living in a rural community for almost coming up to 10 years is that the potential here is so enormous, but one has to put the time and the energy and the passion into really getting to know the community members. And that part is the kind of relationship building and really being vulnerable and finding those out there who want to be part of something. And that is so different from anything I kind of grew up with or my experience in the corporate world, particularly in urban centres. So it's quite a shift, but it's a very exciting one.
What surprised you the most about moving to a rural community?
I guess just the value that those one-on-one relationships can hold. I think when I came here, I sort of met people and thought, oh, well, our sectors don't overlap, or what I'm doing maybe isn't. And I thought, and I was too quick to assume that our paths wouldn't cross again. And then I've noticed, particularly in the last year of really taking my business to the next level, individuals are coming back into my life who I met 5-6 years ago, who I never expected to, with this whole new angle and these whole new opportunities. And I've loved getting to know them again and kind of finding out how we can work together for this kind of greater impact.
Is this your first time that you've lived in a rural community?
Yes, well, I've done some traveling in the past, and I've lived for short stints in rural communities in Europe and Asia and things, but this is the kind of the longest, most settled I've been. Yes.
Okay. How far, like, what's the size of the town?
The population of Nelson itself is 10,000, and then with the kind of surrounding communities, it's about 20,000.
Pretty big community. I mean, I
Yes.
grew up in a town of 800. So
Oh, yes.
That's rural, and I live 5 miles outside of that. So, yeah, all of our friends were animals.
Yes.
But I do understand, like, how it's all, like, you know it was so small when I was growing up, they combined counties to get school districts, so it was like
Okay.
yeah. But it's everybody knows everybody, and the drive or the space in between becomes irrelevant, it's still
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. The
that's
overlaps and the possibilities there are just seemingly endless.
so when you were working in the larger cities, doing the same thing.
I was working mainly in law and then in kind of technology consulting then.
So whenever what has that shift been like mentally for you? Or did you have an adjustment period or, because there's obviously things that the city provides that rurals don't.
Mhm.
What did you notice about your lifestyle or how any resistance there?
Yes, I think there was a certain amount of resistance at first because I'd been so conditioned to kind of operating that more city-like way and having certain barriers up and maybe trying to be someone that I thought I should be. I'd been presented, I was very lucky to start on this career path, and I thought, well, I should be speaking this way, I should be wearing the suits, I should be, constructing this whole lifestyle around who I thought. And then when I stepped away from that and moved to this very different place that I'm so fortunate to be a part of, I realized I could just let all that down. It's that ability to be vulnerable and the acceptance that comes with that from people around. And that's kind of meeting on a very human level rather than trying to be someone that you're not and the pretenses that come with that.
This feels like a gift, doesn't it?
It's very much so, yes.
When you were in the city, like when did you start to notice that things were different? When did you start to see the pattern of this breaking down?
I think it was cumulative over a sort of period of a year and a half. I was living the life where I'd commute for an hour to an hour and a half each day on the London Underground. I would get into a city, like a city block where the offices were, and there would be so limited interaction. On the public transport, God help you if you ever make eye contact or try and make conversation. Other Londoners will attest to this. Like you're very much in your bubble and you're all there for a certain purpose. And then even in the working environment, you're there to get a job done. There was little kind of I just space and energy, and no one was interested in finding out the person that you were beyond that, or the kind of a lifestyle that you might have, or the stuff that makes you human. You were there for your job. In fact, that even came down to, I remember, with so many early interactions when I was in the working environment, like, oh, so what do you do? And it was all about your identity attached to your job title. And really anything else was so distinct from that. And in terms of community, which we're talking about now, and the kind of relationships, there was nothing of that. It was kind of held together with very fragile threads that felt tenuous and easily breakable if the deal wasn't done or whatever the transaction element that was there.
Is that how you did nonprofit work there too, right?
Yes, I volunteered in nonprofits, and some of my legal work covered the nonprofit sector as well.
That's how you had the tie.
Yes, exactly.
I get it. So you were like sort of you were an observer at that point,
Yes,
technically. So you are in that world, you were just there as legally.
yes,
When did you
exactly.
start to sense that they were having issues?
Quite early on, so when I was on sort of the legal side of things, I realized that there were elements of the kind of day-to-day transactions that felt nonprofits are all about mission. It's mission driven. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in the fundraising cycles and all of that constant requirement for money and resources and capacity that you kind of get detracted from that. And when it's in almost more on the legal side of things, when you're trying to make sure that everything is tied up nicely and, obviously legal, I think you can get even more kind of caught up in that. So that's when I realized that I was like, there must be something here. There must be something more that we can be working through. And then I ended up working in-house for a private foundation and was more on the kind of granting side. And the thrill and the delight and the energy that I felt from being in it and really building those relationships, finding out what made people take on either side of the kind of the triangle. It was so much more. I just felt like I was coming alive. And that was the real point at which I thought, I don't know if I can pursue it now, but this is something that I have to come back to in the future.
It's ironic what you said about being in the city and being so disconnected and not like when it's right there next to you, but you actually found it when you went out and there was space.
Yes. Yes. It's just
That
strange that.
things things that make you go, it's true though. I knew everybody when I was growing up in the country and but here it's very, even though I have good friends, it's a smaller group and it doesn't really expand very well. I've been building community here locally in the past 6 months with some projects I've been working on. And I find the same thing. It's really difficult to get people out of that bubble to realize that there's a community that can be built inside of a larger community. It's it's kind of like, but like it's actually there. But hearing the stories that I hear from nonprofits and they are all mission driven. That's why we connect, because that's my focus is mission driven founders or people that are on a mission. It's the same energy of what we're trying to create, and that it brings an emotion to it that's more than just a number. About It's more about what they're doing, and the money's almost sometimes is like a nuisance, but it's also a necessity. Where do you find yourself kind of fitting into that when you're in this rural setting? Like, can you give me a sense of what that feels like?
Yes, I guess there are, because the nature where we are geographically and also where we are as a kind of larger nation
Mhm.
economically, the pots are so limited and increasingly less so. And I found that almost they can't be like, I think it's easy to think of the relationship side of things to be separate from the funding. But I found in a rural community, because everyone knows it and you're never really sure what a relationship might lead to, that they kind of become one and the same thing. There have been many events that I've gone to for the primary purpose of, oh, what's the next granting cycle going to look like? Or what are they looking for in these applications? And then coming out of it with real contacts and people who I never expected to, yeah, have that, I don't know, that kind of aspect of our relationship, and realizing that the two can go side by side and they're inextricably linked, and never being complacent by thinking that just because you've got one, you've got the other. They have to be really tied together.
I know you're supporting many. Do you have one that sticks, like, that is a little extra?
Yes. I am currently working with an incredible local community organization, which is slightly up Kootenay Lake. And the population of that village is 1,000. Um, and we've been working on a really big capital campaign to raise $1 million to purchase the neighboring property so they can expand their programs and services, which is so essential to the area, because this is not the infrastructure to kind of provide things like counseling and food security and home support and all of those areas. And when I started with this client, and they said, okay, the goal is 1 million. We've got a year's contract. We've got funding for a year to take you on this contract. Let's see what we can do. And we are now up to just almost 850,000 in the space of 8 months. And what I've been so amazed by is not like a lot of communities around here. There's not you don't look to it and think, oh my goodness, there are going to be people there who we can target and they're going to be key donors. And, I've got to wine and dine them and really show them what the impact is. It's been about like grassroots, like someone coming in to the office with a check for however much, and the enormous gratitude and the momentum that comes with that sort of movement and the energy behind it. And even when I talk about it now, my hair stand on end, because I can't believe the incredible upswell of support and the donors that we've got. In fact, from parts of Ontario as well, who have heard about this campaign through word of mouth, and the belief that community members have that what we are doing is so essential that we've got to this number in such an incredibly short space of time. So I think that kind of building on the relationship and the funding requests are just like every day when I go up to visit this community sort of once a week, and I'm so touched and so moved by people's experiences and the stories and the support they have for the campaign.
That's incredible. There's always resistance to change, even though
Yeah.
it's better for us. But like, I know your energy alone can do it. But like, what is it about? What was your experience of sharing that with them, or how did that actually happen in real time?
I think when I first stepped into the role amongst the leadership team of this organization, there was maybe a certain apprehension of asking their community members for this support, because even more so than Nelson, this community, like everyone knows each other, and there were a lot of other very worthwhile fundraising campaigns happening by other organizations in such a small area. In fact, I think the community has, is it 82 nonprofits registered for a population of 1,000? So
That's
everyone
crazy.
is incredibly passionate and incredibly engaged and got all these causes that are of such worthwhile concern and support. And so there was a certain sort of hesitation there about how to approach people for more funding. And I guess from a kind of outsider's point of view, I was able to come in and be like, okay, well, in the past we've maybe done mailing campaigns or a sort of very traditional, almost arm's length approach to engaging. And I was like, right, I don't know these people. I want to get to know them. Let's be there everywhere they're going to be. Let's be at the next softball game. Let's be at the farmer's market. Let's go to the cafe. Let's make what we're doing as visible and as easy to interact with as possible, so that there is no kind of like, God, here they are asking me for money again. It's like, it's just seamless, that whole process. And we've been incredibly motivated in terms of putting on events. And so the whole idea of giving back as much as just the kind of, yeah, the reciprocal nature of that has been incredibly important.
You aware of how this is changing you?
Yes, like I go to bed at night and I can't believe that I'm so lucky to work with these organizations, and just the deep growth and attitude changes that I feel in myself, and that I'm then interact with other people in that way.
'Cause it's very much like going from just a consultant, you do your thing, you go home, but you're actually becoming like a steward for these communities,
I feel so fortunate. Yeah.
or a little bit about you're getting ready to step out with you're going to be, front facing,
Mhm.
and how I know that there's the nervousness in it. I know all of that stuff, but just like, what do you are you starting to see, like, how this you're evolving not only in your own personal, but how this is evolving for the community, that you're becoming like a voice for them, or, you're becoming the icon for
Yeah.
what they think of whenever this is, transpiring, because you're producing a result that they wouldn't be having if you weren't there.
Yes, perhaps I'm very aware that all these things they are part of a community and a team effort. And the organizations I work with and the incredible individuals who've put so much time and energy like behind the scenes before I even come on board. I'm really, really driven, particularly by getting female founders and entrepreneurs and women who also want to follow their passions and that self-belief. I really want them to just step out and give it a go. And I am a part of, or I'm a board member of Women Entrepreneurs of BC, which is this incredible organization supporting women and women identifying individuals to, or at every stage of the entrepreneurship journey, but particularly in those early days when one is so, uh, I just can be so self-doubting in your own abilities,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
worried that you don't have purpose or what you're supposed to be there. And I really want them to be able to be like, people want to hear what you've got to say, or whatever you want to do to be
Say
able
the
to lift
thing.
people up like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, does any of it ever occur like a burden?
I think it's a burden, but in a burden in the best way. Nation and the positivity and the opportunity that comes from that, rather than as a negative.
I would I would be curious to ask people that interact with you what they thought about this question.
Mm,
Just the thought. It might squelch that because I assert you are already, that you just haven't made that connection yet. And it might be worth a conversation, after the speaking events or something. So, like, what is forming now for you? What are you becoming as you help these communities weave themselves back together?
I think I'd like to feel like I had enabled a sort of inner strength and confidence that they have the capabilities and the mission from inside to drive it forward rather than needing leadership as such, but just this kind of innate security that the relationships they've stewarded and the ties they've managed and all those kind of things that are sort of fitted together, they can kind of go forward with confidence in that.
Yeah, and they don't need the damn system. Yeah, you're creating the human system.
Mhm.
I think it's beautiful certainly beautiful for you to share and see you sharing it and hearing it. You're also like proof positive that my little quirky idea I think would work. So, yeah, because we're all going to have to do this, but the next step is, on many levels all over the world, we're leaving old systems
Mhm.
that that um, that no longer work. And I think the people that run those systems think they're going to create some new systems, but I'm not interested in their systems because they don't work. You work, right? Like, can you feel that?
Very
Yeah,
much.
that's the break. Maybe it's what they're so really scared about. So we figure out a way to do it. We are. It's easy. We're human beings. We talk to each other and we work it out. And thank you for being an example of that and sharing this amazing story. Are you ready for your closing question?
Yes.
Okay. For a nonprofit leader or a community builder who's feeling that abandonment of the old systems, what do you want them to remember? Right.
I want them to look at their mission really carefully, dial down into the detail that comes with that, look at where they've sought support in the past, and then kind of zoom out and take hold of the wider situation and what can be harnessed going forwards, and knowing that there is the strength and capacity there to make it work, but there needs to be a broader picture thinking of how it's going to look going forward rather than relying on the old ways.
Inserting new vision. Absolutely. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for bringing your groundedness, your vibrant energy to this conversation. They've been doing this for 6 months, at least 10 calls a month, our nonprofit that are in some way coming to terms with what you're building on the other side of it. Now I've got a podcast I can point them to, and I know somebody in my network that will be a way shower. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been wonderful to
It's
talk.
it's rare in the world, but yes. So thank you for blessing us with all of this wisdom and possibility. I love that. So, guys, I just want to remind you that 33 conversations exist to remind us when the systems fall down, that human connection is what will remain and it's what will rebuild us. We've just got to go out and have more conversations with people that we've never met before and open all the doors to all the new possibilities. That's what we're about. And that's what we promote. And that's what we're in action doing. You go do the same. Peace, love, and we'll see you on the next conversation. Bye, guys.